they're planting for way down the road. And I pray they don't grow weary in all the good that they're doing for this community, for the school district, for the teachers, and for the students. Pray they sleep well at night and have a fantastic Christmas. And we think of Jeremy Lejeune and his passing. I'm so grateful that you saved him, that this life is only temporary and he's with you. I pray a blessing over his family. Would you give them peace and grace as they walk this through? And just so grateful that that's a man we got to know and we were blessed by, and he gave away his life to serve others and to lead others. And I just pray his family is comforted in these days. And just thank you for this school district that cares so much about them and about the lives of every single person involved in the entire district. In your name we pray. Pray a blessing over this meeting. Amen.
Okay, please join me in the pledges of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. I call this meeting of the Burnet Consolidated Independent School District in order. Let the record show a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called and has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Miss Angela, are you with us? Hello? Yeah. Okay, good. Enjoy your wine. I won't get to say this later, but I want y'all to have a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and be safe. And we love y'all. Thanks. Keith, anybody sign in for open forum?
We do not have any open forum. Okay. That takes us to communications and reports. Item A is Burnet High School Students of the Month, but when we had to reschedule our meeting to Tuesday, our Students of the Month are busy people, and so they were not able to be here, so we are going to recognize them in February. That brings us to item B, recognition of Burnet High School students for being named to the academic all-state volleyball team, and to make that presentation is Coach Shipley.
First of all, thank you for having us tonight. This is the first time I've ever done this, so I'm really nervous and excited, and I'm a super proud coach, second mom right now of 3 of my girls. It's an honor to present 3 of our senior volleyball players with the prestigious Texas High School Coaches Association Academic All-State Award. Out of all the special moments and memories that we've made the past 2 years together, and actually these 3 girls I've had in middle school and a little bit in elementary too, we've grown together. This will go down as one of my most favorite and proud moments ever. Because not only do these young ladies work hard in athletics and more than just volleyball, they have proven to excel in the classroom throughout high school. This award is not just based on this year. It starts their freshman year, and their overall GPA must be a 92 or better. It's based on their class rank, and it's based on their ACT or SAT scores. I'm beyond proud of all 3 of you and the leadership that you've shown, and you've guided other young ladies to follow throughout the years to come. I know you will continue to finish your senior year strong and accomplish many achievements in your life. Please help me in congratulating Kylie Davis, Carissa Killebrew, and Tegan Tappy.
Bravo certificate for outstanding work. One more round of applause for our. Ladies and family, if you'll go to that back truck over there, we're going to take pictures for the website, newspaper. And that brings us to item C, recognition of 2020 Christmas card design winners. And I'm going to step over to the podium to make this presentation, because I'm going to have some young people join me. So each year, Burnet CISD hosts a Christmas card design contest because we send out a lot of Christmas cards this time of the year to surrounding districts and other friends and supporters of Burnet CISD. And so we always want to have a Christmas card that has been designed by our students. We select a campus that is going to provide the Christmas card. And this year it was R.J. Ritchie Elementary. Representing R.J. Ritchie is our principal, Bobby Steiner, and our art teacher, Adrian Conley. So thank y'all for being here this evening. So I am going to, we awarded our top 3 places, and our first place winner is actually the design that we use for our Christmas card. But I'm going to start with 3rd place, and that is Haley Martin, and this is her beautiful entry. And Haley has won a $25 cash prize. So, stay right here, okay? And then our 2nd place winner is Cambry Carmichael. And here is her beautiful design. And Cambry is walking away with a $50 cash prize. And then here is the official Burnet CISD Christmas card for this year. And that was designed by Isabel Ortiz. And Isabel is earning a $75 cash prize. So congratulations. One more round of applause for our Christmas card design winners. We're going to ask y'all and your families to also go right over there, and we're going to use that backdrop and take pictures of y'all for the website and the newspaper, okay? And with our student recognitions complete, we are going to shift gears slightly and conduct our annual external audit hearing. And our auditor.
Come on, Scott, stay here.
Kevin.
Come on, just one person.
Don't let him. Yeah, don't let him do that to you.
Forgive us if you don't get a standing ovation. I'm used to it.
As a reminder, Kevin represents Ide Bailey, our audit firm, and Andy, Clay, Jill, and I had a chance to meet with him about a week and a half ago, and he provided us an initial overview. And hate to take away your thunder, but he's got nothing but good news to share with the board.
I will give a warning. He said this is the first time he's been able to leave his house. Only the 6th time he's been able to leave his house since March, so he may get a little long-winded. So I'm wrapping it up.
Good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? Thank y'all for having me here. And thank you in advance for letting us do the audit this year. We always enjoy working with Burnet. It's a good school district. That said, I'm here to go over the draft financial statements that we prepared for the August 31st, 2020 audit. And I've got a slideshow you can follow along. And please feel free to ask questions during or after. With that, I'm going to get started.
So it not clicking? Is it on?
It is on.
There it goes.
Oh, there we go. First thing I'll go over is the auditor's opinion, which is the purpose of getting an audit. There's a lot of wording in there, but I like to summarize it here. Management is responsible for the preparation and presentation of the financial statements, and management is responsible for the internal controls over those financial statements. As the auditor, our responsibility was to express an opinion on those financial statements. And this year we plan to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's a clean opinion. It's the opinion you want to get. It means that we found that your financial statements were consistent with accepted accounting principles. And we have no issues or findings to report tonight. And that's the same opinion we gave last year. We'll go through the numbers briefly. This is the statement of net position, or the balance sheet for the district. And this presents the balance sheet on a comprehensive basis. And the assets includes long-term assets such as land, buildings, and equipment. And the liabilities includes long-term liabilities such as bonds payable and the pension liability and the TRS care liability. I'm going to focus more on the fund financials. These are the various funds that the district presents. Total assets last year were just under $18.8 million. Total assets this year were $23.3 million. That's an increase in cash and investments related to some tax notes that were issued, and then revenues were a little higher, bringing in some more cash this year. Receivables is amounts due from the state for foundation payments, and then property taxes, which were just under $1 million, and then various amounts due from the federal grants the district participates in. Excuse me. Other assets were $1.3 million. That's primarily due from other funds. The various funds of the districts borrow and loan money from each other, and that is primarily what the other assets are, so more of an internal asset. Accrued wages went from 1.5 million to just over 1.4 million, and that is just payroll that was worked in August but not paid until September. Due to other governments, increased from just under $30,000 to just under $1.8 million. And that is mostly due to an overpayment from the state for the foundation revenue, and that's related to CARES Act funding, where the state has reduced foundation payments. Other liabilities was $1.3 million. That matches with other assets above, and again, that's internal borrowings between the funds, so more of an internal liability. Deferred inflows of resources was $992,975. That is the net property taxes due that haven't been paid. Under government accounting, you can't show that as revenue until it's been paid, so we have to show that's a liability. So if we back all that out, we're left with fund balance of $17,791,206. And I'm going to go over that fund balance on the next slide. Fund balance increased from $15,796,000 to $17,791,000. That fund balance is made up of several buckets. The first is non-spendable for $243,000, and that's inventory and prepaid assets or expenses that the district's paid ahead of time. We have to show that as non-spendable fund balance. Restricted fund balance is $2.2 million. That's going to be debt service and the construction fund, and then various grants that have fund balance. And what that means is that that fund balance can only be spent for those stated purposes. It can't be spent for anything else. Committed and assigned fund balance is fund balance that the district has set aside at its discretion to fund future projects. And those future projects include campus activity funds, turf replacement, future recapture, and professional development, and COVID expenditures, and other related expenditures. That's money the district has set aside. If you back that out, you're left with just under $12 million in unassigned fund balance, and that decreased slightly from last year. But again, the district has set aside more fund balance than it did last year. So overall, we had just about a $2 million increase in fund balance from prior year. We'll go over revenues briefly. Total revenues last year were $43.3 million. Total revenues this year were $44.7 million. Those are broken up into three categories. Local revenue is primarily going to be property taxes, then along with some investment income and other miscellaneous income, but the biggest chunk of that's going to be property taxes. and that increased from $33.9 to $35.7 million. State revenues is primarily foundation payments from the state. That decreased from $5.2 to $4.8 million. And federal revenues is the federal grant programs the district participates in, and that was very steady at just about $4.1 million both years. Expenditures increased from $39.6 million to $42.5 million. It's an increase of about $2.9 million. Biggest increase was in instruction related to higher payroll expenditures as House Bill 3 comes into effect. Other than that, not a lot of changes. As the district receives and spends more than $750,000 in federal grants, we're required to perform another audit that's called a single audit, in which we look at your compliance with federal programs. Any federal grant has requirements on what you can and can't spend the money on, and we look at that for the single audit. We don't look at every program. We have a risk-based approach where we pick a sample of programs each year. The two programs we've selected this year for testing are the child nutrition cluster and then ESSER, or the CARES Act or COVID funding. And when we do the single audit, there's two pieces. There's the compliance. So we look and say, did you spend the money on what you should? Did you spend it on activities that are allowed? And were any of the compliance requirements not met? And so far, we have not found any issues with compliance. No instances were non-compliance. We are done with the child nutrition cluster. ESSER has complicated things a little this year. As each year, the federal government puts out a compliance supplement telling us what we have to do to audit each program. And ESSER is a brand new program. And we are still waiting for that compliance supplement to be issued by the federal government. We expect that any day, but we're just waiting for the federal government to issue that. We've already done some testing on what we think ESSER will have us do, but until we get that final compliance supplement, we can't fully finish the audit. But to emphasize again, as of now, we have found no issues, and I really don't expect any to pop up, but we will finish the ESSER program hopefully in the next few days.
So the next business item, 7A, we're actually not going to take action tonight. We'll take action to approve the audit in January once they receive that ESSER information.
And that's nothing that's waiting on us. That's nothing that's waiting on the district. We're just all waiting on the federal government to issue the guidelines on how to audit this brand new program. The second piece of a single audit is we look at internal controls over compliance, and we just look to see, did you have policies and procedures over your compliance, and do we find any issues? And we did not find any control issues. So we anticipate issuing a clean opinion on the single audit also. And as I said at the beginning, we have no findings or issues to report on the audit. With that said, that's all that I had. I'd be glad to answer any questions. I would like to commend the district for their preparation. This was certainly an unusual year. We typically come out here twice for a few days each time. Due to COVID, our firm has been working remotely since March. So we did this audit entirely remotely. So we didn't get to come out here any. We asked for a lot of information, and Jill and Clay and their team had to upload a lot of documents, and I just really want to commend them. They did a great job in a changing environment, and they got us everything that we needed timely and allowed us to finish this audit really fast, especially given circumstances this year. And they're really professional, easy to work with, and they do a really good job, and I wanted to commend them to y'all tonight. Thank you.
And I would say that we're very pleased with Ide Bailey as our external auditor. You want to feel like you're audited. I think, other school districts may not have that same opinion, but I want us to feel like we're audited, and I feel like that when he stands up and says that we're doing a good job, we're doing a good job. And so I just appreciate the level of detail that you do check our processes and our numbers.
Thank you. We enjoy working with y'all.
All right. Any other questions? If none, we are going to skip again item 7A, and we'll bring that back for consideration in January. We're going to finish up a handful of communications and reports. Under this section, item A is report on operational instructional issues related to COVID-19. Just to give you an update on a couple of numbers. As a school district, since the beginning of the year, we've had 49 confirmed cases of COVID on campuses. We currently have 9 active cases in the district. We define active cases as within the last 14 days. And then we've had 122 students and staff quarantined for close contact. As you know, we recently had to move Burnet Middle School to completely remote instruction. All students returned to in-person instruction today. And what I said would happen is exactly what did happen. At one of our meetings, I said, we are going to go to remote if we do ever go to remote, it's going to be because we did not have adequate staffing and due to quarantine. And that's exactly what happened. We had our entire administrative team and office staff and some teachers were quarantined. And that resulted in us not being able to have school with the same level of supervision that we need to have to ensure safe school. So by our numbers, you can tell that the quarantine issue is greater than the current COVID cases that we're facing.
Are any of them the current COVID? Did any of them come down with COVID?
Not to my knowledge, no. And I'm looking across over your shoulder to Michelle, and
There is one in question, but other than that, I mean, there's been other close encounters with that one particular person.
what we're seeing typically is close contact just at school. You're not seeing the transmission. It's the close contact at families where you're seeing it is resulting in other COVID cases down the line.
How close, what percentage of our population does that come out to be? That's under 1%? So far under the average. That word just needs to get out there. It's a point something, isn't it, Earl?
On the
49
close
out of what,
contact
4,000?
or the
Well,
close contact?
Close to 4,000 people.
COVID.
I mean, with staff, 3,600. Yeah.
Wow.
In terms of leave, as a reminder, the federal leave days, there are 10 federal leave days, and we have used 357.8 of those days at a cost of $8,725 to date. And the 5 days of local leave that the Board of Trustees approved, since August 17th, we've used 19 of those days at a cost of $975. And so we had assigned $405,000 to cover that. And as you can tell, our run rate, we have plenty of money set aside and expect to put some of that money back into fund balance at the end of this school year, granting the fact that we hope that we're in a different place with COVID, starting with the 21-22 school year. We have 3,081 students to date. As you know, you follow it, we report weekly to you. We're seeing this little uptick, and then the past couple of weeks, we've started to see a little bit of a downward trend on our enrollment. So we're at 3081. We have 370 remote learners today, and that represents, again, 12% of our student population. That 12%'s been hanging pretty steady the past several weeks. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jones. She's got a couple of items, rapid COVID testing and accountability note.
So we received our first allotment, our first shipment of the rapid tests, the Abbott Lab rapid tests that EA is providing to schools. And so far we have 4 people in the district who have done the Texas Department of Emergency Management training to be able to administer those tests. Right now we deployed that just with staff in 2 situations. First of all, if they have symptoms that can't be explained another way and they want to know if it's COVID, we allow them to take a rapid test. And if they still have symptoms, we don't want them to go to work, even if it's not COVID, because we also don't want to spread flu. But if it's something mild, that means they can come back to work as soon as they're over their cold or over their allergies. And they don't need the out 10 days if they have a negative COVID out even if they're symptomatic, or to know that they must immediately self-isolate if it were to come back positive. The other situation that we've offered it to staff members is if they're in close contact quarantine. The new CDC guidelines that were released allow some kind of earlier times to get out of quarantine with testing. Now, the Burnet County Medical Advisor is not in favor of taking advantage of the day 5 option due to the trend of spread in our county right now, but she has been in favor of using the day 7 option. So in that situation, if an individual is asymptomatic at day 7 of quarantine and they take a test and it's negative, then they could return to work as early as day 8. And so without any testing, if they remain asymptomatic, they could go back to work on day 11. So that gives us 3 days back of a staff member coming back sooner if they feel well and if the test is negative. So those are the 2 situations that we've used with staff so far. Between December 4th, which was the first test, and the 14th, we have offered 18 tests to our staff members. 12 have taken us up on it, and all 12 of those were negative. It's completely optional, so some people, for a variety of reasons, just they don't want to take a test and they would rather have the full quarantine, and that's their decision to make. There's no coercion. It's just an option for them to choose. So right now, we just have the 4 testers. We don't have separate dedicated staff, and so that's part of why we're trying to refine our procedures, because we don't have somebody that can drop all of their job responsibilities and perform a test. If we get a call from a campus, everybody is already working doing other things, and so we're limiting it to those situations where it can help our staff get back to work sooner. And asking the campuses to refer them to us, let us schedule it where a person can, have that on their calendar and take care of it for them later that day or the next day, rather than just having people drop by. We don't have a drop-in model. We do report to the state every week. The reporting is pretty extensive, and that's also a reason to kind of slow roll the procedure so that we're sure that we're gathering the information we need on the front end, so it's not a nightmare on the back end. And so we've got to report how many tests we offer, how many tests we administer, how many come back positive by subgroup, by staff, by student each week. And so that's another reason to have the campuses help us with that referral process, to be sure that we have good records of who we've offered the test to, and then who actually comes with their consent signed to do that test. Any questions on the rapid test?
I would just say that as a reminder, we had shared with you that we were in conversations with the possible partner, and those conversations really just have not gone any further at this point. Our hope is, if there's still any opportunity for that they would be able to maybe manage the symptomatic individuals. The protocol for testing someone that's symptomatic is you're putting on the full N95, the face shield, the gown, the rubber gloves. I mean, you're putting on the whole. And so it's very time consuming when there's only 4 people that are trained in the district today. So I don't think that door is completely closed, but we just have not moved the football any further down the field on that, having a community partner help us with that.
So Scott White hasn't picked that conversation back up?
No.
Do we have a limited number of tests, or how many did we get?
We received our initial shipment right at 600,
Just a little over 600.
and they will, and if we use them, they will restock them.
It's a formula based on your student enrollment and your staff numbers.
As long as the tests last in the state. So there is a limited number of tests available statewide, but it's also pretty apparent that fewer school districts than anticipated have ordered the test. They actually made a push today to try and get people to make one last order before the holidays to get into the program. And so that's why we wanted to get enrolled, because especially once the close contact rules were adjusted, we just needed to have it on hand to try and help prevent as many people being out as possible.
And this is staff only?
Right now, we've started with just staff only because of our limited capacity. We do envision, as we enter into January, February, that there will be a place to do students.
Is it a cheek swab or is it the nasal?
It's a front nasal
It
swab.
is.
So it's 15 seconds at the front of each nostril,
And when do you get the results right away?
15 minutes.
Are there any costs or charges associated with any of that?
No, it's free of charge to employees and at the time that we roll up to students, it'll be free of charge to the students as well. All right, then I'm gonna venture into this topic of accountability. This has also been impacted by COVID yet again. And I think there will be more to come in the days ahead, but you probably saw the press release from TEA last week that they decided to waive or suspend rather the A through F state accountability ratings for the spring of 2021. They've not suspended STAR testing because the viewpoint is that the data is still valuable to know where the kids are in their learning. And so the STAR tests are currently still scheduled for the spring. As we talked about before, our district does use other data-informed measures to know our students' progress besides the STAR. And so I continue to advocate that money that is used for STAR administration would be better spent on other needs that schools have. That those funds could be repurposed in a time of budget shortfall statewide because we do have other nationally normed, highly respected data collection tools that we use every month in Burnet CISD, and we do not rely on STAR as our only data point. However, some of those requirements are not up to the state to waive. There are some federal requirements involved. So what you may not have seen with the large press release about A through F is that also last week, the state released information about their state plan addendum and their federal ESSA amendment. That is out for public comment right now through January the 11th. And so they have put out some of the points that they're asking the feds to consider, such as delaying the implementation of the requirement for an SAT or ACT for kids who took an in-course exam in middle school for accountability purposes. There's a request to only report reading and math participation rates because they're concerned about some of the SAT, ACT. The College Board doesn't offer their tests on schedule. Will that hit participation rates if those are used to substitute? So there's kind of a laundry list of things that they are asking. None of those are to eliminate state testing. And so we'll see what happens with that. I will say that participation rates could be a critical factor because the STAR test can't be administered remotely from students' homes. They have to come to school. And so if a student doesn't feel safe or if a family has a medical reason to be home, they're not going to take the STAR test. And so it's important, I believe, for that participation rate requirement to be waived because that will vary widely county to county, depending on what's happening in the landscape of the virus spread. So the STAR tests are still on. End-of-course exams for high school students are still required for graduation. And so we actually just have come close to wrapping up our December administration. We've got a couple more young people still to try to take the makeup test this week, try to capture them, but most of them wrapped up in December. And then we'll have the spring administration for the end-of-course exam. The commissioner was very clear that he does not have the statutory authority to waive that. That graduation requirement isn't statute. However, going into a legislative session, and so anything can happen in the next few months. We'll see how that rolls. You have questions for me about all of the assessment accountability waivers?
Are we still gonna have the big push towards STAR like we've done with the pep rallies and, just all of that?
I mean, we want for students to do their best. The label for the schools, just because the label for the schools is that there doesn't mean that it's not important. I mean, if we're going to have to do STAR, I believe it's important to find some value in it and take the value that you can from it. So we want our students to do their very best. And so we will still get them ready for it, review for it. But remember, previously the SSI requirement, which is that 5th and 8th graders must pass the reading and math remote, that requirement was already waived. So the stakes were lowered a because we don't have a star from last year. So they would have to come up with a 2-year calculation. There's not a lot of precedent for that in Texas. And so I think that some of that's going to depend on what the state plans to use the data for. If they're going to use it for something that's important to a kid, then we want to be sure the kids do their very best. If they're going to not report it to us or something, very out of the box, then we'll kind of take that as it comes.
Given some of the COVID protocols, though, probably, you will not see the exact same
Right.
activities.
Oh, no.
I did participate in a legislative seminar last week, and there was definite talk among the legislature that EEOC as a whole, that they need to close. And so I think that there very likely could be action taken to remove the requirement to take it for graduation. The other piece that related to COVID is that was a big push beginning late yesterday and today. All the major education groups in the state, the TASA, the TASB, Elementary Principal Association, Secondary, all have written the governor asking for hold harmless to be held over through the spring semester. And so as a reminder to y'all, we're projecting about a $300,000 deficit, although if that enrollment keeps dropping, it grows every time that drops. But that would help to close that gap if the hold harmless was put in place for the rest of this year. So again, during the legislative seminar I participated in, there seemed to be a lot of agreement that should be expanded to the spring semester.
Really nice if they could find a different pool of money to pull it from too, and not give it to the next biennium, so they could find more federal money.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the federal money that the governor has that he hadn't decided how he's going to?
Yeah.
Okay, that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it's got about 15 days still.
Yeah. TikTok.
So those are the reports that we have tonight for operational and structural issues. Anything else related to COVID that you would like to ask? Then that brings us to our financial reports. Mr. Gary?
Yes, sir. We will get started on page 17, and that is the monthly financial statement. And I just want to point out that we are at 24.81% expended. The run rate would be 25%, so we're pretty early in the year to get kind of level out on that run rate. So that's a really good sign that we have the budget in hand and everything is kind of running as it should be. Page 21 is the tax collection report. If we recall last month, we pointed out that we had 0.5% collections, and prior year was almost at 5.5%, and that we were not panicked yet, but if I came back this month, we would be panicked, but indeed, the run rate was up to 10.8%, so now we moved up above last year's collection, so it simply was a timing issue on when some of those tax bills were sent out, and so when we started to receive the funds was after the cutoff of the prior month. On the utilities report on page 31, I appreciate your patience. We did not have that completed with the early meeting. We got it completed yesterday, and there's just a couple of things to point out. That there was a leak up at the ag barn that caused water to be high, a little bit high at VHS, and then as we all are aware, this November was quite warm and dry, so we had some additional utility expenses that are not the norm in November, which drove up some of those costs. And then, that is all I have on the financial reports. Any questions?
So one thing I would point out, January and February meetings, January should fall about, but it seems like February is going to be very early. And so January, February, we may end up having the same struggle with the utility reports that we're having right now. March will be after spring break, so it will be fine. But just to give you a heads up on that. And then want to make sure I'm saying this right, but Kevin presented audited fund balance totals. And if you try to take those and apply it to this report, they're not completely coordinated because these are unaudited. And so it will be updated in January for the first time, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir. And then also he was talking about all funds combined.
Right.
That may be some issues, but you're exactly right. And that also reminded me, thank you, Keith, that in January, you're gonna get approval. Nothing in this document is gonna change. So all the numbers are locked in. Everything's the same. All that'll change is they're gonna run probably one additional test on how we spent the CARE Act money. And then if that shows up something negative, then that will change. But if that is approved and everything's fine, then it'll be presented exactly as it is tonight. We'll let you know if anything that changes. And so y'all know, we spent the CARES Funds Act on continuing to pay teachers at Title I campuses during the closure. So we paid R.J. Ritchie and Shady Grove salaries in April, May, and part of March. And so it should be a very easy test. I mean, we did that on purpose. So we didn't buy stuff, we didn't have to do bids, we put it to that salary. So we do not anticipate any issues when it comes to the CARES Act guidelines.
And why don't you roll into item C, report on 2021-2022 budget development calendar.
Absolutely, yes, sir. And so that's on page 44 in the board book. And we did kind of get in here and adjust this a little bit to help prepare for the unusual budget preparation calendar we'll be facing with all of the unknowns. So we are getting ready to meet, I believe tomorrow is the initial meeting to try to help establish a baseline personnel needs list. So typically, we would already be building a budget based on prior year data. We assume everything just rolls over. We have this many teachers, this is what we need. We are not making that assumption this year. Keep us, Michelle called me to go over everything and try to get a good baseline. And so as we move into January, when I build our budget document, where when I tell Keith we are this much above last year, this much below, it'll be we are this much above that baseline budget that we kind of are hoping to establish here in early winter. Make it down the next 2 days and then through the first couple weeks of January. So that is going to kind of be the steady that we use as we get ready to build the budget. We will then get ready, work with campuses, send out budget worksheets. One change and an approach is instead of sending out principals, say, hey, send us your needs. What staffing do you need? We're just going to start with a conversation. We're going to sit down with Superintendent Joe, Rachel, myself, and the principals and just have a conversation about their needs. And so it's not, they put in a ton of work to come up with all these lists of staff members and we aren't able to honor any of them, or vice versa. They say, they're not going to do anything, I should be bothered about it. They do that. We thought, sit down, have a conversation is the best way to approach it this year. So everybody knows exactly what the needs are. We're going to do the same thing later in the spring for one-time purchases. Not near as big a deal. But sometimes campuses have an idea, and that's really Charlie and Josh, who sometimes have some big one-time items they really need, and we'll have that discussion. Instead of just opening it up to requests, we're gonna have discussions. Other than that, there's a whole lot of, if we're able, we're gonna approve pay raises at this time. If we're able, we're gonna do this budget at this time, but we do our planning on a March 1st and June 1st budget workshop, which fit the typical times. March 1st is gonna be a lot of, okay, we've established these baselines. Here's some things that we're planning or looking at, and how do we respond if the legislature does this and the legislature does that. Hopefully June 1st, we'll have a good idea of what's going on. I don't know if we're gonna have all the answers, because it sure looks like a special session. It's sure talked about a lot with the all things that are going on, but we'll be able to take, a little bit further steps, and we'll have the ability to approve pay raises, approve those things all along the line. We don't, normally March is kind of where we look. We can talk about it March, April, and have the ability, but we'll have to just kind of respond how things play out. And then we have a May 1st bond election that will require some flexibility if that passes or fails, how our budget reacts to that as well. So those are kind of some of the differences, and clearly we'll communicate along the way how things are looking and how we think the budget's going to play out. Questions, comments, suggestions? All right, thank you.
And that concludes the communications and reports.
And good ones they were. Okay, gets us down to consent agenda. Information on these items has been sent to the Board of Trustees for review prior to the meeting. Any board member may pull any item from the agenda without a second, of course, for deliberation prior to consideration. Any item pulled will be considered with the action items on the agenda. And the items tonight are A is board minutes, B is expenditures of 25,000, and C is the revision to the 2021 school year calendar. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All right. Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Morning.
Okay, I've got down to item 10 as elect board officers. And nominations are now in order for the office of president. What's your pleasure?
Nominate Andy Fields, president.
Move nomination cease.
That's not on my script here.
I couldn't help it.
It's all right.
We just ceased and said that.
Well, let me say it right quick.
The old egg thing came out in the egg.
Myself has been nominated for office of president.
If he will accept it.
Are there any further nominations for this office of president? He will accept, if that's what y'all want. All right, with no further nomination for the office of president, those in favor of me being president again, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, the nominations are now open for the office of vice president.
I nominate Angela Moore. Second.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? There's nominated for Angela Moore to be vice president. No other? None other? Going once, going twice? Okay. All right. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Nominations are now in order for the office of secretary.
Nominate Earl Foster.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded. And incidentally, I understand it does not require a second.
No,
Just for
but
the
can
heck of it.
happen
It-
to show
Yeah.
support, yes.
Right, right.
Third.
Well, we'll get to that third here in just a second. Are there any further nominations for the office of secretary? If none, those in favor of Earl being our secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank y'all. Really appreciate the your confidence.
Thank y'all.
All right, item B is discussion and possible action regarding the approval of superintendent summative evaluation document. When I first read that, I thought we were doing the summative.
Nope. Too soon. So on page 54 of your board book, you'll find information regarding the summative evaluation instrument used to evaluate the superintendent. As a reminder, the 4 strategic goals were approved earlier in the fall of 2020. In addition to those 4 strategic goals, there are also 4 ongoing goals that have been drafted to cover the areas of student services, operations, business and finance, and productive working relationship with the board. Once approved, this instrument will be used to appraise the superintendent for the 2021 school year in September 21.
I move for approval of the summative evaluation instrument.
Second.
Okey-dokey. Motion been made and seconded to approve the superintendent's summative evaluation instrument as presented. Any more comments?
Well, not only the instrument, but the ability to just to talk about it. It's been really good. You know, just having a standard method and improved it over the years. It's really, I think, become a real good document.
I agree
And
100%.
a great process, a lot different than the way we used to do it. which made no sense.
Once a year, we'd get together. And no, never mind.
Yeah, exactly.
This is real good, and I hope future boards don't decide to change that part of it, for sure. All right. Any more discussion, comments? Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item C is discussion and possible action regarding approval of new high school course offerings. John.
Thank you. As you know, each local board of trustees approves the curriculum offerings to students in the district. And so, item 10C, which on page 67 of your packet, includes the following new courses for 21-22. You see a bulleted list there. General employability skills, student-to-industry connection, principles of RCAD, graphic design 2, medical terminology, practicum and STEM, engineering science, college prep English, and college prep math. These courses might not all necessarily make, depending on student interest, but they allow us to better align our pathways for kids. I'll highlight a couple of things with these. The first two, right now, those are planned to be used in our special education students who are transitioning into workforce, so that they have some state coursework aligned to the work that they do to prepare to enter the workforce. The principles of arts and AV for students who are interested in graphic design and going that route, this would replace the principles of information technology that they're taking right now. So it's a different principles course that's better aligned to their long-term goals, so they can get a little further in those certifications, a little deeper in that knowledge. The practicum in STEM, that's an example. Of course, we've had some kids doing some really cool independent projects with some of our staff after school and such, some robotics and things like that, but it wasn't for course credit, and this would allow them to have course credit aligned with some of their other CTE pathways. And then those last two that you see there, those are aligned to House Bill 5, the requirement that we develop a college prep course in English and math in cooperation with an institution of higher ed. And we have been in conversations with TSTC. They have shown initial interest in partnering with us, and we're developing a memorandum of understanding that we'll hammer through this spring with our teachers, so that they basically would bless that course, saying if a student passes that class that we develop in cooperation with them, they are TSI complete, and they don't have to take the assessment. So for some of our kids who have huge test anxiety, they're not great test takers, but they can do the work. That allows them to be TSI complete and enter into college credit-bearing classes rather than having to take developmental classes at TSTC. So that it's just an agreement with the institution to work with, but those are some of the students who TSTC might be a great fit for them anyway. And so we're currently in conversations with TSTC to have those courses offered. And they also count as a fourth English and a fourth math for the foundation plan. So it's a double win for those kids to offer those classes. You'll see a list of courses at the bottom of that agenda item, and those are not new content, but kind of a cleanup of names, credits that might have changed over the years, so that our menu of approved course offerings aligns to the current state names of the courses that we offer.
We're offering an awful lot of new stuff. All that, does that fit within our credit? Are they gonna have the ability to do these classes and still fall within their course credits they need for graduation? Is it gonna be is this just throwing too much at them?
These are more than just full electives, and so they fit
Okay.
within endorsement plans.
That's what I mean.
They fit within the federal programs of study in many cases. And so we worked with the high school administration to look at, it also looks at just what can our staff take on. And so there are a few places where we can repurpose what we're offering right now, tweak it to something that better aligns. But all of these will fit within a pathway toward an endorsement, toward a CTE program of study potentially.
Okay. That's
I was curious on the, say, foreign language part. Do we still do Chinese or Mandarin or whatever?
We do still offer Chinese through Proximity, our remote instruction provider. We don't have a lot of students taking that. And any foreign language we offer, we really want to offer at least 2 years of that, since they need 2 years of credit. But there was, at one point, it looked like we might even have to collapse those into being one concurrent section, because the interest in that is not as high. I guess it's not the new thing anymore, but we do still have students enrolled in that. There's the potential, as we grow our computer science program, that there is some computer science coursework that, if it's the correct computer science class, can count as foreign language credit too. And so that would be an interesting way for some of our STEM kids to take care of that foreign language credit.
There's no particular issue with me, but I was approached a number of years ago about, say, sign language.
Yes.
And that, I understand it qualifies, or at that time it did qualify for that. So,
It still does, and it's a really interesting offering for kids who might struggle with academic language. Sometimes they really thrive, and American Sign Language is their foreign language credit. It is extremely difficult to locate teachers for that. They are a rare unicorn, and you want to care for and pet the unicorn if you find one. But if you find one, it's a great class. Kids really do like it for a foreign language alternative.
And you mentioned the principles of art, so that would replace our current PIT? Is that what you said?
Just for those kids who are in that pathway.
Oh, okay.
A principal's level class is usually the beginning of their CTE pathway. And so there's principles in ag, principles in information tech, principles in business, but we haven't been offering the Arts AD overview principles class. And so that lets them get a little bit of a broader picture of just that field before they go further into graphic design and web design and some of those pieces.
Okay.
okay, we need a motion.
Move to approve the new courses as presented.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the new courses as described. Any more comments or questions? All right, if none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item D is discussion and possible action regarding approval of state waiver applications for school years 2020 to 21 and 21 to 22 and 22 to 23. Dr. Joe?
All right, page 70 of your packet contains a description of 3 waivers that, for lack of a better term, it's just kind of time to re-up. These are 3-year waivers that we've applied for in the past that we'd like to apply for again. The first one being modified schedule for state assessment days that mostly comes into play at high school, so that they can modify the schedule of students who are not involved in assessment. Timeline for accelerated instruction, which is what allows us to, in years that we have SSI and the kids take a test in summer school, if we don't have to do intervention with the kids in July and August when we get the results back, we're allowed to wait until the next school year to do waiver. And we might not need to use that flexibility in summer 2021 because SSI is waived, but there's still a wild card what will come in the summer, so it'd be great to have it, but we know that it would be useful in future years. And then finally, the foreign exchange student waiver, which allows us to cap the number of foreign exchange students at our high school, so that we can ensure that we don't have our resources and energy diverted too much from our general population. So we would put in a waiver to cap that number at 5 at Burnet High School.
I moved for the approval of applications for state waivers for school years 2021 through 2023.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the application for state waivers for the school years 2020, basically to 2023, those 3 years. Any comments, questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Gets us to item E is discussion and possible action regarding the approval of maximum class size waiver at R.J. Ritchie Elementary. Dr. Jones.
All right, page 71 describes our request to apply for another class size waiver. At our Ritchie, there's a second classroom now that is 23 students. So their enrollment grew to 134 we would apply for one additional classroom over 22.
What grade's that?
Third grade.
Third grade.
So there are 2 classrooms of 23.
We were actually 30 days ago at 2 classrooms, but like the day before the board meeting, we dropped down the enrollment change. So RJ has this history of riding, they'll go up by 1 and then they'll drop by 1. And so
And I will note that some of those 23 are remote, so that they're not 23 bodies in each grade necessarily.
How many are remote? How many are remote?
I would have to look at that and get back to you.
All right, move for the approval of the maximum class size waiver at RJ Ritchie Elementary.
Second. All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the maximum class size waiver at RJ Ritchie Elementary as presented. Any more questions or comments?
I'd assume that's one of the principal things y'all will be visiting with budget, isn't it?
Yes.
Any more? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Let's see, item F is discussion and possible action regarding approval of a local district update affecting board policy, EIC, local academic achievement, class ranking, et cetera. Dr. Jones.
Right, on page 72, item 10F, EIC is one of those policies that you kind of cringe if you have to touch because it's the class rank and GPA and it's a very big deal for students. However, this is a very small change. We're proposing a change of wording in 2 places. That's because the college board who governs advanced placement and pre-advanced placement classes has changed the requirements to be able to use the pre-AP label. AP classes are still on just as always. The pre-AP classes, which have begun in grade 6 traditionally, college board has added additional stipulations that we believe it's not a good fit for us to commit to long term. They require now that you submit a course audit just as you do for AP classes every year, use their course framework, use their assessments, send to their extensive professional development every year, buy their recommended
all about
materials. And it's a recurring cost. It's not just that you do this once. And so it's just something that and to add on to that, they are very clear in their FAQ document that, no, we don't cover all the T's. You're going to have to figure out how to do that on your own. So we're going to spend a lot of money and then we're still going to have to do some curriculum work on our side. So we convened a committee of advanced academics teachers, instructional coaches, and administrators to talk about what would we want to do instead of pre-AP as our advanced academics course offerings. And right now we started with just the name because that is the immediate change for all of our course guide, course selection documents. And so the committee landed on the name honors. And then the work that they have to do in the spring is to then look at exactly what does that mean in Burnet? How is an honors class different than an on-level course? So we'll be working on that in the spring, but for now, with the change of name, we propose adding the word honors. And you'll see that on your packet in page 73 and 76. Adding the word honors is one of the categories. Excuse me. One of the categories for weighted GPA classes. And those are the only changes we're proposing to EIC local.
if she has to say another word, she's.
I'm tearing up, so close to my heart.
Oh, me too.
It's funny, I was around long enough ago that we went to figure out, okay, what's different from honors to go to pre-AP.
Yeah.
So it's like you stay long enough and everything comes full
I'm
circle.
just glad to see that word come back.
Yeah.
One of the teachers on the committee remembered that too.
Yeah. And it was a big deal then too. It was like, oh, it just looks more and more like College Board is really showing their true colors. We're about making money.
Mhm.
Well, and they're losing
And
their
yeah,
money, and so they're having to find other ways
that's
to
right.
make the money, yeah.
It's been a racket for way too long.
Quit spending it on climbing walls, lazy rivers.
Stadiums.
Quit spending it on climbing walls and lazy rivers and everything else. Start spending on education.
They announced that they were gonna make these creative changes a few years ago.
Yes.
And I felt like I've been playing chicken with college board. I was just really sure they were gonna blink first because districts statewide are bailing out of pre-AP because they
Mhm.
cannot sustain that. And so I thought surely everyone's gonna start dumping them and they'll change their mind. And they haven't, so I was wrong. I thought surely that they would see that it's not a business model.
I move for the approval of the local district update affecting board policy EIC local academic achievement class ranking.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the local district update affecting board policy EIC local academic achievement class ranking as presented. Any comments, questions? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, gets us to personnel.
Okay, on page 80 is just a report of at-will staffing, and so you'll see that we're continuing to hire at-will staffing, and so we will continue moving forward with that. If you recall, at last month's meeting, we talked about being able to hire a math teacher, and we're going to be bringing you the Spanish teacher in January. So he just graduated, passed all of his tests, so we'll have that information for you on the January report, as well as a music teacher.
So kudos to our principals and to Michelle. I mean, during a year of the pandemic, when we do have people attriting in the middle of the year that, that never really happens. And we're filling positions like a high school math and Spanish and hard to fill positions. So that doesn't happen by just accident. Hard work and going out and beating the bushes and recruiting people, because the Spanish instructor especially, he had his pick of like 5 districts. And so between Casey's team and HR, we sold them on Burnet was the best place for you. So
So he'd be there when the kids come back?
yes.
He will be here on January 5th. He's actually already been in town a few days. I think he'll be here tomorrow and Thursday,
Oh, good.
observing in the classroom.
All right, there's an item H on here, superintendent's formative evaluation. But we believe, I talked to Keith earlier, that we'd rather have the full board there with Angela in particular, if at all possible. And so we'll have to reschedule that.
We'll target January.
Yeah,
That's all right.
Sidey die.
Happy Christmas and Merry New Year.
Wow.
Ho, ho, ho.
Say that
Yeah.
3 times
21.
fast.
Yeah. No, good to see y'all. Be
Merry
safe.
Christmas,
Be
Angela.
safe.
Merry Christmas, Angela.
There's a commercial with, see it to the John Travolta. I can't remember the other guy, but see if they asked him, quit using the wrong words. And he goes, yes.
Hey, Angela, you still there?